I thought, like, this is the guy I want to be with forever. Gave you some
You
ultimatums.
did?
I did say this is a zero tolerance policy for me. Getting to that blacked out stage where you're not emotionally, physically, like mentally available is not going to work, especially when we're parents.
I was telling our therapist last night. I was like, I had to constantly say to myself, stay open, keep your heart open. You got to take this in. And there was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain that what I was doing was actually making me feel that way. And I never really understood that before. But eventually, to have a place where just to evolve the relationship and to truly move past those challenges or those difficult times, the deep work has to happen.
Yeah.
Just know that fixing the problem is good. It'll help. It helped us, but it won't go away.
Won't solve.
It won't solve because other things will spark those feelings again. Welcome back to Over Dinner. I'm Jarrod.
And I'm Dr. Nikki. We're not experts. We're just two people doing the work together and apart.
Sharing real and unfiltered conversations about the human experience.
Tonight is our first episode where we are debriefing a couples therapy session.
Yeah, a little nervous.
No, I mean, these sessions, they ebb and flow in their intensity.
Yep.
And last night was an intense one, right?
Yeah, we're like, oh, this is going to be the first episode we're going to do in this way. It's a good one.
I mean, I think we were honestly both surprised at how present some of these feelings were, especially since the topic that we're discussing tonight is over a decade old.
Yeah, I think also it's something that we thought we were past. Mm-hmm. We had moved on past it. And we didn't really, I don't think we ever thought it would come back up in our therapy session. And it did. Yeah.
And it did. It really did. And tonight, what we're discussing is unresolved trauma and how it stays with us, even we think we've solved it, like you just said. And even when life has changed around us, it really threw me because, again, like I thought things, but I also had feelings that came up. So it's not that surprising either.
Yeah, I think and I think I didn't maybe know that some of these feelings did continue to come up. It was manifesting in other ways, which we'll talk about, right? But I don't think I thought that you still felt these things from previous about me and worry and what we'll talk about. So yeah, it was interesting to it was hard for me in the session last night to hear a lot of this from the past, but also that this was still something that was lingering for you. It was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just some key points about trauma in general and like unresolved trauma is that it's not just a mental experience, it's a physical experience as well. And it can resurface as physical and emotional ways, even though we think it's been resolved. And it can show up in everyday situations. It can be triggered by stress. It can be, for me, it's like we talked about something that came up in session. I was so surprised how there was a correlation between these two things, but we'll get into all that.
Yeah, but it's also like we've talked a lot about this in other episodes before, is that, when emotions come up, more often than not, you feel it in your body first.
You do. I don't.
Yeah, but it is there. It's in everyone's body. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just if you're aware of it or not. And most emotional experiences are coming from past experiences resurfacing. Maybe not the exact same thing, but something is triggering that emotional experience that is centered from something in the past.
Yeah.
So when you think of just all of it, a lot of us, when we feel nervous or anxious, we feel it in our stomach, right? A lot of pain and that lives more in the chest, right? So it just makes sense, and being able to be aware of that is really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's something I'm definitely working on because I immediately go to a cognitive.
Yeah, and we're opposite that way. I go body first, because I have a lot more challenging time, as we'll probably talk about, to connect to emotions that way. But it makes more sense to me to go into my body a little bit more.
Yeah. And as we discussed, that healing takes more than just addressing the situation.
Yeah. Fixing it.
It takes a lot more work in terms of truly understanding where each person is coming from, and coming from a real compassionate lens. So I think, it was a really beautiful and intense experience.
Yeah, it was a really challenging. I was mostly silent, felt really uncomfortable through the whole session. I was like, am I going to feel this exact same way
You
leaving?
did also a great job of like staying present. Were able to communicate your feelings. So you did a great job.
Heart gave me some good praise.
You did a great job.
We both did. I
Yeah,
think we both
did a great job.
But I was like, am I going to feel this way leaving tonight?
Yeah.
That would have been really hard. But she's great. Our therapist is great.
Yeah.
In getting us to come to that resolution and work through, even though, as we'll talk, majority of it was through you, having the session through you, it really came back. She always comes back to the other partner at the end to work through what they're experiencing. So let's get into it.
Okay. So this topic we're discussing tonight is really about the early years of our relationship.
Yep.
So Jarrod and I met when we were very young. I was 22 and Jarrod literally turned 24 the week before I met you.
Yep.
So we were very young, and you can imagine what young people are doing right out of college. You probably did it yourself, is a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, a lot of late nights at the bars, dancing, doing all the fun things. And it was really fun. We had some great times. We really did. And in the beginning of most relationships, you're not really thinking about the layers that go along with a relationship. You have these long dates where you're talking, shut down restaurants like we did. It's like very romantic and lustful, and you're enjoying
the honeymoon stage.
The honeymoon stage, exactly. So nothing was really like an issue until a little bit later into the relationship, maybe around year 2, and I started to move away from that era. It did not fulfill me in the same way. I realized I was using it more as a mask than as something that I really enjoyed doing. I found yoga and became not only a student, but then a teacher, and then a teacher in teacher training. That took my weekends away. So you'd be at the bars on a Saturday and I'd be teaching yoga, to teachers, right? And our values started to really change. And that was a difficult time because I was no longer interested in the same things as you were, but you were still going out and doing them. And this was ultimately what we did. This part right now is ultimately what we talked about last night, is that during this period of time where I was moving away from this scene, Jarrod's being still in it, it caused a lot of trauma for me in the relationship, in the sense that I was terrified when he would be out. I couldn't hear from him. He would be inebriated to a point where I couldn't depend on him if I needed something. He wouldn't respond to his phone. It became really scary. And I ended up feeling in this time period very scared, abandoned, angry, and alone with this. And after a late night out, I would, if he wasn't responding, I'd be pacing back and forth in our apartment. I'm trying to call people that maybe he's with. And this was the time there was no Find My Friends. I was just imagining you in a gutter, or somebody would bring you home. And it sucked. It was just really hard. And I would be so angry by the time you got home. And then I was also upset because we'd have experiences together that would, as I said in the therapy session last night, I felt like moments were stolen, memories were stolen from us, Bahamas trips, or and everybody else is egging you on because they think it's hilarious. And you are the sweetest, kindest, most loving drunk person there is. So people
I love a lot when I'm drinking.
People love you. So want
to have deep conversations.
But they don't make any sense, but they are.
Sometimes they did.
Okay. Well, you're just people want to be around you kind of guy. And I think you fed off that. But for me, it was not a good experience. So I would be really upset that that's how, things would end up. And so after these nights, we would talk in the morning and I would share with you the experience. And, there would be like an apology or like, I'm really sorry for making you feel that way. It's the last thing I want to do is make you feel this way.
Say all the things that
Say all the things.
maybe someone who drinks a lot would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got to a point where I would give you a code word when we were out called peanut butter crunchy.
That was our code word.
Like peanut butter, peanut butter, peanut butter crunchy.
Peanut butter crunchy is like, you're almost there, buddy.
You're done.
You're there.
And there would be some times that Jarrod would like totally listen to it. And other times he would be very defensive and tell me that I was wrong, which hurts because like I just wanted honestly the best for you. It was really for the best for you and for us to be together.
Yeah.
Anyways, this was a tough time, but while the alcohol issue was eventually fixed on the surface over time, the feelings remained unaddressed. Yeah. Right?
No, I think it's important to talk about, whereas, that's what we did back then. That's what most people did back then. It was different. I don't know everyone else's experience, but it was different for me of why I would drink and what it gave to me, right? It wasn't why I wasn't just drinking, having a time, and then going home. It was excessively drinking. Not, again, this is only mostly social outings.
It was only social.
But a lot of time, I'd have a couple of drinks at home, but I wouldn't get this inebriated. Yeah. I wouldn't black out. I wouldn't not be able to respond to you or know what's going on, wake up the next day, not understand what happened. And I think, a lot of this, obviously talking about trauma, a lot of this stems from childhood things that happened. And what I came to in the therapy session, kind of a realization and talking to Hart was that actually during that time, because I blocked so much, I don't think I felt a lot of things. I probably felt more anxiety and fear a lot, but joy and these other feelings didn't exist for me really. And drinking is where I could eliminate that anxiety and fear and, in a sense, feel happiness and joy. And so that was what alcohol was for me. It allowed me to get rid of the negative feelings that I was feeling. I didn't know how to address, wasn't addressing. And when I drank, I was happy-go-lucky, having a great time.
Yeah. I did think that was really fascinating. When you said that, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
He was saying in the session that to alleviate, and it made sense to me before I thought about this, like to alleviate anxiety, you're going to drink. Makes total sense. But then when you said the piece about that when you're blocked, not just when you are blocked in the areas that you were blocked in terms of those emotions, right? Feeling all the painful things, you're also blocked in the other.
Yeah, you can't, you're blocking everything. You're blocking everything.
And when you said that, and then you said what the alcohol does with the, being inhibitions.
Yes. Well, you're inebriated, which drops your inhibitions.
That you could feel that happiness. Joy. And I was like, wow, that is really fascinating.
Yeah. And so for me, that was the way that I could feel those feelings that I wanted to feel. And the only way I could feel them was through drinking, consuming. Right. And that was a big light bulb for me. And that's why it was really, really hard. Even when these tough conversations were happening, is like, but I wanted to feel joy and happiness. And the only way at that moment in my life I could feel it was to consume and drink and be socially around people and be the life of the party. Like, that's why I think I went overboard on not just the drinking, but the kind of person I was in that bar, which I do think was true, was a little more me, right? Because they say that a lot, right? However you are, like the true person you are, when you drink, it exasperates. That's why some people, when they drink, they get really angry because they're an angry person. But inside me was joy and all these things, and love. And when I drink, that all poured out. I was the least angry person. I was the happiest, most joyful, loved on you, loved my friends, deep conversations. And I love that feeling of being able to be that person. And so it was addicting. It was addicting to get back to that experience over as when I could.
Yeah.
And I wanted that over and over again. And that's why it was so hard. Even when I really didn't understand I was hurting you. I could hear your words, but again, blocked in that moment, that I'm just going to say the things I need to say, but I like that feeling. So I want to go get that again. The only way I can get it right now is through alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, it's a beautiful synopsis of your experience. And like, even thinking about it that way in regards to addiction, I haven't had that same type of experience. But when I think about it for you, I can totally understand why you'd want to continue to feel that, right? It's like, that felt great. I could be myself. I feel free. I feel happier. I feel lighter. I don't have this anxiety. The interesting thing for me, though, is like, I'm sure this also happened for you, is when you're sober and you're hungover, the anxiety is probably 10 times worse.
And which that's why people start drinking.
Like hair of the dog.
Hair of the dog. That's it.
Yeah. No, well, thanks for sharing that. And we're 12 years out from all of this. And in the moment, the feelings of anger, distrust, frustration, they really came from the fact that I loved you very deeply. I thought, like, this is the guy I want to be with forever. I'm very concerned, though, like, what does this look like when we get married and we have kids? And like, is this gonna be my life?
Yeah.
And I did gave you some ultimatums.
You did.
I did say, this is a zero tolerance policy for me, not in the regards that you can't drink, but that getting to that blacked out stage where you're not emotionally, physically, like mentally available is not going to work, especially when we're parents. And like, I felt that. I mean, I'm actually really curious. We didn't talk about this in therapy because I said those things to you. How did that feel?
Again, I was blocked.
But you really didn't think that I would leave, or if I did leave,
it was too strong. It was too strong to, I didn't want you to leave, but also the feelings I was feeling in general did not like them at all.
Yeah.
And the only way to get away from them was from that.
Yeah.
So
what, we talked last night about like what changed. So do you want to talk about like,
I think the first thing that changed is our moving from Orange County to San Diego, because that group and the people that we did that with and how that all was, my friends after college, all that was there. And so going and moving to San Diego, into a new city, we didn't really know many people down there.
Physical distance,
even though that wasn't that far. Physical distance, we weren't up there a lot. We weren't seeing them a lot. I became a leader over a group of people. So yes, I had to step up, but even still in moments, I still did it even with them.
Yeah.
Right. Far and few between, but there was less opportunity. So there's larger gaps in between the moments that happened. So it was probably felt really, really good. And then probably in yours, I'm surprised you didn't leave because it didn't just stop. But in my mind, before I ask you, is that because they were so much farther out, you're like, it's a one-off thing, maybe. I don't know, but because it didn't stop after some of those ultimatums. What made you stay?
Because you were the one. You were the guy. So like,
you must have saw some belief. Maybe
I always had belief in you.
Yeah.
Always saw that person.
Yep.
I think that's also why, and we talked about this. I remember like there were mornings where we talked about this, that like I saw you without the mask of alcohol. And it was disappointing or frustrating that you say this to me. I'm laughing about it now. But like I could see you and you couldn't see yourself. And now you say that to me.
I do.
You do. So I always was rooting for you, right? I was thinking of what you just said about, those one-off situations. So I think that might have been one thing. Like, this is a one-off. We don't go out very often. He's just letting loose, having fun. But I also think that it just never went away. The feeling never went away. It never went away. And I think that when it really started to decrease for me is the pandemic. Even though you had been out of like drinking like that for a while, we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to
we had a child, and
I'd have to worry about you going to events or work trips. I'd have to worry about anything. So that was really nice, right? And then a year into the pandemic, we moved here. And by the time we moved here, things were very different in our relationship. But they weren't where they are today, right? They were still, but we were in a different place. We had a child, we bought a house. there was like a lot more responsibility. You got a promotion at work. You're now corporate. Like you were taking yourself way more seriously. You were so disciplined. I mean, you are, not were, you are. But even when we moved here, like, which you had seldom experiences, in the beginning of like going and doing things, I still was feeling anxiety when you would go out, even though
in years
it'd been years, or you'd come home like well before 11. You weren't drunk. You would go to work trips and you'd be in your room before everybody else. Like you weren't giving me any reasons to not trust you.
Yeah.
But it still caused me so much anxiety. And something that we discovered last night is, and we talked about this in last season about your travel and how anxiety provoking it is for me. And so our therapist brought it, like we both thought it, and then we kind of all talked about it as a group or a triad, that you leaving instills the same feelings of unresolved trauma of being abandoned or being alone or having to like take care of different things when you're not here.
Yeah.
So there was a parallel there.
Yeah. It was that was triggering the physical trauma, as you talked in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it was correlated to you just not being there.
Yeah.
Not physically there, because if something happens, you literally are not here. Right. When back then I was physically there, but you were still alone. And if something happened, you were still alone.
Like if you were drunk and it was a fire and I had to probably carry it downstairs.
Yeah. They carry me or probably leave me in there and take some other important things.
Probably.
Take the dog.
But then another thing that we thought about is something that I don't think it's resentment, but there's a part of me that feels I have to go over and above or be like really dialed in, and I have to have everything. I take it on. And I think that it's not just this. I think that that's part of my internalized messaging around ADHD and overcompensating. I think there's parts there. But the second part of this is not feeling like I did have to take it on. And we talked about last night how in this time, it felt like I was a parent with a child. Yeah. And instead of it being a partnership. And so it was frustrating. And so even today, I still take on certain things because I feel like I have to. Yeah. So it's interesting that both the work travel, like you flying or being out of this area, as well as this other piece we're talking about, like, taking on things, doesn't have to do with alcohol drinking.
At all.
And so this did not come up at all until we went away, as we shared in our last episode or 2 episodes ago about we shared it last time?
2 episodes.
2 episodes ago about the football game that we went to. And there was a moment that we were there that the feelings came up for me. And they hadn't been present like this.
That's what triggered how we got into this with our therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now we worked through it last night.
Yeah. That's the interesting part, is the surface, the initial problem of drinking leading to me being blacked out, you feeling alone, I'm not there, worried, fear, abandoned. The top surface thing, I changed. But the big thing is that we really hadn't had this conversation before. I really hadn't understood or been open to understanding.
Can I just say, we had this conversation, but neither of us really had the conversation.
No, we didn't.
So we have these words that we used last night. They had come up for both of us, like my anger, his shame, things like that. But it was not resolved.
No, it wasn't resolved. We were just talking about it and then finding the solution to that not happening again.
Right.
But not really diving into the trauma that was existing.
Right.
And that's what happened last night. And that's why it was so hard, because it's the first time that I was open and left myself available and had done enough work to, when you were describing all this and the things you were feeling, just tore me apart.
Oh.
It tore me apart. Like my heart hurt and I wanted to block it. And I was telling our therapist last night, I was like, I had to constantly say to myself, stay open, keep your heart open. You got to take this in. And it was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain that what I was doing was actually making you feel that way. And I never really understood that before. And never, and what's interesting is I actually could relate to it. And that's the first time I could relate. And I actually had experiences in my, childhood and things like that that I could relate to
Feelings.
what you were actually feeling. And I was like, oh my God, And that was the first time, I think the first time you probably expressed it the way that you did too. Like the way that heart was able to get down, like she was poking and feel it, and you were struggling to get the right words out and what that felt like, but then she got you to articulate it. And I got guys like literally for probably 45 minutes of this, it was just I had to sit there but it was important because I need to experience what you felt, because we had never got that deep into it and understanding how it was still playing out in our dynamics and in our marriage.
Yeah. And well, I first want to say that must have been excruciating, like so
So
hard,
hard. It was so
so hard. But what I will say is because that you allowed yourself to be open, because I didn't realize how angry I still was.
yeah.
But as I was speaking, like I felt that in my
But I could
body.
feel your anger.
I was
I could
angry.
feel your anger and the way you were speaking, the tone,
Yeah.
your physical presence.
Yeah. I was
I could
angry.
feel it.
And then as soon as though you were able to really hear it for the first time and say all the things you just said, that allowed me to soften.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel different today in general. Of course, I had 2 therapy sessions yesterday, so I'm just like hungover
Yeah.
from therapy.
Mhm.
But also I feel different even talking about it tonight.
Mm.
It feels like it was a part of our past. It's not part of the present.
Yeah, and I still think we're probably gonna, as Hart said, we're probably just a couple more things that we gotta.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's gonna go away. I don't think you're just gonna be like, oh, I'm not gonna feel those feelings
Well,
anymore.
why don't we talk about what, because I did bring that up.
Yeah.
I did say, like, because you had a beautiful sentiment at the end of like really saying how much you heard me, as well as really ask me what I would need.
Yeah.
And so
That's what she asked you.
right, what do
Instead of like, I forget what she pulled you away from what we were talking about. She's like, no, no, no. She's
no,
like,
you said, oh, because I said, well, so it was something about trusting for like the future.
Yeah.
And like you said, well, I'm not in that place anymore. I'm not going to be doing that. I have values. So you tried to fix,
yeah,
right?
I tried to fix and say like we're past it. We're
Yeah.
still going back to.
So then she stopped us and said, what is it that you
need,
need?
Nikki. She's like, no, what do you need?
And
like because just because we had this conversation and opened it and felt it doesn't mean it's just going to magically go away, right? Like how we thought things worked before. She stopped and said, what do you need?
Yeah.
From him, like because let's start this. She always asked permission because she knew what we were going to get into was going to be really tough and deep. And she said, Jarrod, do you want to help Nikki through this? Do you want to help her? Mm-hmm. Right? Because she's not going to be able to do this by herself. There's 2 of you involved in this. Mm-hmm. So that was the question. Do you want to help her? And what's crazy, we went through all this, and then she brought it all the way back around as this was the moment that you were going to ask me for help. Like, what do you need to ask Jarrod for? What do you need from him? Right? Because she started that way, like this conversation's about how you can help Nikki. Do you want to help her through this? And then it came all the way back at the end to when we were starting to fix again. And she's like, no, Nikki, what do you need from him? Mm-hmm. Which was the help. Yeah. And what did you say?
I knew intuitively exactly what I needed, which was one, acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. So my idea of what acknowledgement looked like is, you saying it's taking initiative before it's even happening. So, hey, I'm going to go out with the guys. I want to let you know that I'm planning on having a couple drinks, maybe 2 beers, and then I'll be home by this time.
And I'll communicate. I'll let you know when I get there. I'll communicate.
So so what I felt was a little uncomfortable because I'm like, I don't want to be micromanaging my 38. You're right, 38, right?
You just turned 38, babe.
You're 38, my 38-year-old husband who has proven to me time and time again now how responsible he is. I don't want to micromanage him.
And then I stopped you. I said, Nick, this isn't micromanagement.
Yeah.
I want to do this as well because I do think it's important. This is part of me helping you, like
My anxiety.
yeah, helping your anxiety, like
Right. And it's not just about drinking. It's like
no,
also I'm like, I want to have his flight number. I want to like know, and like he tells me when he's
landed when I got there,
landing.
when I'm going out to dinner, when I'm getting back to the room, to call you when I get back. Yeah,
It's not, he doesn't always call, and that's okay. It's more of like a quick text
yeah,
of just keeping me in the loop
which is something I didn't do before
at all.
at all,
At all.
at all.
Then you did start to get better and
I
better
got better.
and better
I
and
learned.
better. Now you're great.
Yeah,
But that was what I ultimately needed was acknowledgement
yep,
of my concerns
yep,
and then
yep,
communication of the
yep.
details.
And then I said, but Nikki's dream state and Hart helped us through this is that I don't ever want to have to ask.
Mhm.
I just want him to do it and know, which is
I'm just thinking about how many women are
yeah,
thinking like, I want my husband just to,
yeah. And it's
oh,
just we're humans too,
yeah.
right? We're humans too, and so and what I asked of you, like I want to do that for you, but I asked of you is like if you need more or if you're more anxious or something's up for you, I need you to ask for that more. Like I need you to, instead of just assuming I'm gonna know.
Yeah.
Right. I know the basic. I'm gonna text you when I leave. I'm gonna text you when I come back, where I'm at, what time things are happening. But if there's more that you need, I'm not gonna be able to know that unless you tell me. And I want to do that for you.
Yeah.
It's not parenting. It's not micromanaging me. It's me helping. We're a
Mhm.
relationship. It's symbiotic. I need help from you from things. I ask for things from you, and you have the same right to ask for things from me. And I think that was a really crucial part for me too, because sometimes I get caught of like or feel like I mess up because I didn't know that I was supposed to do something. And I think a lot of women want that. I think a lot of
Mhm.
people want that. But you should just know and you just do it because you know and you love me so much. But I think that's where it goes both ways, and
Mhm.
that was really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really think that what you just talked about is there's a big difference between fixing and feeling,
Yes.
right? Is like fully listening to somebody and coming looking at, their perspective and recognizing like surface level issues.
Yeah.
They're gonna be fixed in the moment, but the root issue is still there.
I
And
think
so you have, a partnership and understanding that these things will, continually come up
yeah.
is
I think
important
it's
to know.
important. That's an important takeaway. Again, as we mentioned in the last episode, we're able to articulate and do these things because of the personal work that we done. It's not just like, hey, yeah, go do these things, guys. I think what we really want to say is if problems are keep arising and you fix it, just know it's not going away.
Yeah.
And at some point,
Gonna really.
it's going to continue to surface
Yeah.
and just that awareness of it. So when you're ready to actually address the root problem, it's not going away just because something got fixed, someone changed, or someone did something different. It won't go away, especially if it was for Nikki that traumatic. And those emotions of abandonment and fear are strong. And those things don't just disappear because I decided to change some things because it's obviously her experience, right? So she has to deal with her experience. Just because I fix something is not going to change all those things that you felt. And that's it. And it's not just that you're going to be able to go do this. It took us freaking 12 years to get to this point. Then maybe all we can do is shine an awareness of it. And maybe you're not going to be ready that if there's a problem or something it keeps coming up and you deal with it and you fix it by someone changing an action or something happening, it will keep surfacing
Yeah.
because it will show up. Other things will trigger it for whoever's person felt that trauma. It will trigger it back for them.
Well, like we've talked about is you think you go to couples therapy to fix a problem.
That's why we went, and that's not it.
It's
not.
part of it, but
That's the surface
it's
of
the surface of
like
what's
we
really
like
going
the
on.
problem we went in with. We kept getting like early on, we're like like more Nikki was getting frustrated. Like, are we actually going to talk about the problem? And I was like, I think this is what she's doing.
Yeah.
I think she knows it's a lot more deeper than this, and we're getting to these things that problem will actually dissolve.
Yes.
Because of this other
Well,
stuff
no,
that she's
it's
having
because of
to
the individual work that we do within the couple to
therapy.
help one another understand where the other has wounds,
Yeah.
where the other has trauma, why someone reacts the way they do, the way that she works with each one of us in those coupled experiences really is what untangles
Yeah.
the quote unquote problem. So, would you say this was a helpful therapy
It
session?
was immensely helpful,
Yeah.
immensely challenging,
Yeah.
but I know those uncomfortable and challenging moments is where the growth happens for me individually and both of us, because I
Hmm.
think we both were uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was extremely helpful.
It's like so we worked with her since January and now it's October and it just came up.
It just came up.
And this was such a big
This
and
is one of
she
the
and she
biggest
really
things.
acknowledged like how hard. I mean, I felt like for the first time I also had it acknowledged.
At one point, because she was like saying how hard it is and all these things, I was like, damn, I'm just getting ripped to
You know,
shreds.
I thought that
I was
too.
like, I'm just beaten down. I was like, be open. Be open. That's what was going on inside. I'm like, damn, I'm getting crushed right
You know,
now.
I thought you were being
I
pushed
was
too.
being crushed. But it was the right, you needed that much acknowledgement. Like she did it right
She did it right.
because of how deep and painful that experience was. Now that I understand it from
Hmm.
me feeling it,
Hmm.
that she needed to validate and really, really lay it out there.
Yeah.
Like she laid it out.
Yeah, she did. She
Like
was
really.
super like honest and
Yeah, and
kind.
I was like, whoo. And
Yeah.
I had an emotional day at work just from talking to some people that were going through some challenges as well. And I was like, damn, this is a day.
Well, I was actually thinking while she was talking, I was like, she just like siding with me because
That's what
like
I thought.
I was like, she really like
But
gets me.
it
But
wasn't a
then
side. She just knew what you needed.
needed
She could really be aware of what you
because then when
needed.
she wrapped it back around,
Yeah,
like then it made
thank you.
all the sense
All of it.
because I was also then because I felt so validated and supported and seen. What happened was is it allowed me to then hear you
Yep.
to then find the
Well,
softness.
she had to move you past the anger because you wouldn't have been open to
Right.
anything that I would probably say.
Right.
But underneath, anger is always expressed because of
Pain.
pain,
Hurt.
fear, hurt, right? That's an expression of those.
Right.
It's an expression of those. So she got you to go to the anger, which is the first thing it is. But as she said, there's so many layers underneath. And at first you couldn't get there. Then she eventually got you to go to the real big things of like strong words like abandonment,
Yeah.
loneliness,
Yeah,
you
she's
know.
so good. She's so good. So, what are our
I
takeaways?
think what I said, I think the only thing that's actually a takeaway, because again, we're going to therapy. We made the decision to go to therapy. We've done a lot of personal work. I think just know that any problem in your marriage that you fix, someone changes their behavior is wonderful. That's great. It's going to help, but the underlying things are not going to go away because other things are going to spark those whoever felt the real trauma when in whatever that situation was or those situations happened. It isn't just going away for them. If they haven't done work or you haven't done work together, it's just not going away. It's going to surface again. So just know that. And you might not be ready to get to that level to go there, but eventually to have a place where just to evolve the relationship and to truly move past those challenges or those difficult times, the deep work has to happen. Um, and just know that. And you might not be ready, as you said. Like
Mhm.
that's why it took us this long. Like we had a lot of conversations like this and probably even deep
Mhm.
conversation, but we really, really didn't get it. And I couldn't understand your experience. I don't think you truly understood what the experience was
Mhm.
actually bringing up for you. So for me, that's the biggest takeaway is
Yeah.
just know that fixing it, the problem is good. It'll help. It helped us, but it won't go away.
Won't solve.
It won't solve
Yeah.
because other things will spark those feelings again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That was a really good way to end. Well, this was our very first episode of
Yeah.
debriefing our life
It was a
on air.
on air.
But
Yeah,
how
but I
do
think
you
it's actually
feel?
helpful for us. I think because I think we said in the last episode introducing this is that we go to that session last night and then we come home with the kids
Yep.
and we drive separately. So I'm coming from work.
Yep.
We really don't get a chance to debrief
No.
and actually go deeper. So what we actually did last night was sit down and really unpack. Okay, what were the takeaways? What
Well,
really happened?
it wasn't crazy. It was just
No.
like, but we definitely for the first time,
Yeah.
we took notes
Yeah.
of what we experienced. And that way, like now we're talking
Yeah.
about even further, which
I think it's really a lot more helpful.
yeah, I think this
Yeah.
is going to really help keep it just not only sustained, but imprinted, right? It'll
Yeah.
be imprinted. So,
And I'll say one last thing. I mean, because this, as we said, this is the therapy episode and what we experienced. But I think what's important for me individually is probably something I'll share either on my first solo episode or upcoming is, what did I do to not to stop the drinking, but really to start connecting with my feelings inside, because that was the only way I would have been open last night, or just been more open in general. What's the work I did to remove those blocks? Because that's been everything for me, is removing the blocks of the emotional feelings I was trying to get rid of or remove without using alcohol, and just kind of what I learned and things that I've done.
Yeah, that'd be so helpful.
Got me into a place to be able to have conversations like this and open up vulnerably and really connect to how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think it'd be so helpful.
Yep.
Well, we appreciate you being here, and as always, share with us how you feel. If you resonated with this episode, share it with somebody that you think it would be valuable. We have new episodes every Tuesday. We are going to have those solo episodes and another couples episode this month. So, anything else you want to?
No, just subscribe, follow. Yeah, I think we're really changing this format. It's right for us.
Yeah.
It's our true selves. And as we said, our whole starting this thing was about the human experience, and this is our human experience and it's what we know. So why not share what we know?
Yeah.
This is our expertise is this. Is the mess. Is the mess.
It's us. Is the mess we're in.
Is the mess we're in, and that's all we really can offer and be experts in the world on, is our own mess. So we're at a place where we want to share.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't think the first one would be this one, but I think it's important.
Yeah, I think it was very important.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, have a great night.
Have a great night. Bye.